Hi folks, this lecture, one of my favorites. This is a tiny snippet of honors class I do on American pop culture in the 20th century. This is basically 2 weeks of lectures boiled down to about 24 minutes. The title is Blaxploitation and Disco and Hank Aaron. Blaxploitation was a major theme in American television and movies in the 1970s. Blaxploitation was the elevation of black stereotypes, performed almost always by black actors or black musicians. It was an attempt to break into popular culture by playing up on what white audiences presumed black lives are like. Well, there's basically three types of roles for African Americans in the 70s on TV. One was the cop, one was the pimp, and one was the teacher. On the left, you have a TV show called Mod Squad. Three undergraduates, college students, are recruited by the local police force to go undercover and do all sorts of police investigations. I remember playing Mod Squad in 1969. It was me. We were all in kindergarten. It was me, it was a girl named Jennifer, and it was a kid named Craig Dubois. 18 children in the family. He was the youngest. Vietnamese. His father, I'm not sure when, came to the United States, but Craig was born here, and we played Mod Squad. Huggy Bear. Huggy Bear was a character in the Starsky and Hutch TV show. He played the pimp. Room 222 was the most critically acclaimed TV show of its time. It was about an interracial urban high school taught by interracial teachers, and they talked about the big events of the day. They talked about Vietnam and protests and civil rights and the Equal Rights Amendment and police violence. And if it was going on in the United States, it was on Room 222. Like I said, it was critically acclaimed, wonderfully written, beautifully acted, but panned by the audience. Americans don't go to the movies, they don't watch TV to see a reflection of their lives. They, for the most part, do that as a form of escapism. I mean, if you want a documentary, you have PBS. Well, Room 222 was really a reflection of American society, which most Americans, that's not why they're watching television. They get that on the nightly news. Well, now we go to blaxploitation in the movies. 1980, we have Disco Godfather. Rudy Ray Moore played a character named Dolomite. Dolomite was a martial arts expert and owner of a disco. And he launches, quote, a one-man attack on a major producer of angel dust. Don't mess with the Godfather. 1974, we have Black Belt Jones. Jim Kelly plays the role of Black Belt Jones. The mentor of his karate shop, a guy named Pop Boyd, who's played by the very famous actor slash singer Scatman Carruthers, is killed. Jones tries to find the people who killed his mentor, the owner of the karate shop. 1973, we have Cleopatra Jones. Cleopatra Jones is, quote, a United States Special Agent. And her job is to, end narcotic trafficking in the U.S. and abroad. Well, she goes after a heroin dealer named Mommy. And Cleopatra Jones burns her poppy fields in Turkey, making Mommy upset. And Mommy goes after Cleopatra Jones and her friends. Cleopatra Jones wins out in the end. We have TNT Jackson, a young karate expert. Karate was very big in the 70s. Thank you, Bruce Lee. A young karate expert searches for her brother's killer in Hong Kong. TNT Jackson was played by a woman called Jean Bell. Jean Bell is famous because she was the first African-American centerfold Playmate of the Month for Playboy magazine. And I guess finding the killer of her brother is easier to do in a bikini. We have the Black Gestapo. The Black Gestapo is about a separatist movement in Watts in which African Americans launched their own community. However, there is a separation within the separatists, and the leader, a man named General Ahmed, is concerned that one of his lieutenants, named Koja, was going to overthrow him and engage in a race war. Superfly was certainly probably the second most well-known movies in the blaxploitation genre. Superfly was a cocaine dealer who wanted to retire. So he thought he'd make one final big score. Well, the problem is he's working for the Mafia, and the Mafia doesn't really have a retirement plan. So he has to, one, make his big score so he gets lots of money so he can retire and fight off the Mafia. That's Superfly, 1972. The one serious movie is called Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. Marvin Van Peebles wrote, directed, produced, edited, composed the music, and starred in this movie. Very powerful. About racism, about police brutality in the United States in the early 70s. This came out in 1971. Notice that it's rated X. A lot of movies were rated X. Before X meant, sex. X for a while just meant extreme violence or touchy subjects. Well, and then we have an entire subgenre of black monsters from the 1950s. Blackula is one of my favorites. His bite is out of sight. Here's what the trailer said of the movie. Quote, "Rising from the echoing corridors of hell, an awesome being of the supernatural, with satanic power of sheer dread, chained forever to a slavery more vile than any before endured. Blackula." Two actors probably most well known for the blaxploitation movies is Fred Williams and Pam Grier. Seems like Fred Williams put out a blaxploitation movie about every 6 months. Boss Nigger and Hail Caesar, two of his most well-known. It's basically the same thing. He is the leader, or a supposed leader, who has to fight injustice. Pam Grier played two major characters, one called Foxy Brown and one called Coffee. They're very similar in the sense that they both attacked greed and corruption, drug dealers, police violence, racial inequalities. But probably the most well-known, certainly the one that made the most money, was Shaft. Richard Roundtree played the lead character, Shaft, about a African-American cop who fights not only crime in the street, but also police brutality and racism in his own police force. Isaac Hayes, who was on South Park for quite a while until his famous break, Isaac Hayes wrote the theme song to Shaft. It's about 6.5 minutes long. It's about 5 minutes of music and just a very little bit of words or lyrics there towards the end. And I played a lot of that in one of my introductory PowerPoints. Here's the first line, or the first 3 lines from the theme song from Shaft. "Who's the black private dick that's a sex machine to all the chicks? Shaft. Damn right." Now, music in the 70s, I should say one of the major themes of music in the 70s is dancing, and dancing was code for sex in the 70s. Isaac Hayes' theme from Shaft is quite obvious, doesn't even hide it, just comes out, beats you over the head with it. Rick James and Super Freak. Rick James was a little late. This was definitely disco-inspired. It came out in 1980. Here's the lyrics. She's a very kinky girl. And you probably want to think, well, how kinky? The kind you don't take home to mother. Excuse me. She'll never let your spirits down once you take her off the street. Thus, she must be a prostitute. Casey and the Sunshine Band, Get Down. Baby, baby, let's get together. Honey, honey, me and you. And do the things. Do the things that we like to do. And then he lists them. Do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight. Another song from Casey and the Sunshine Band, Boogeyman. I'm your boogeyman, that's what I am. I'm here to do whatever I can. Pretty suggestive, whatever I can. Be it early morning, late afternoon, or at midnight, it's never too soon. To want to please you, to want to keep you, that's a little creepy. To want to do it all for you. ABBA. This is, I find, a very sad song, but probably one that really connected with a lot of teenage girls. If you change your mind, I'm the first in line. Honey, I'm still free. Take a chance on me. If you need me, let me know. Gonna be around. If you've got no place to go, if you're feeling down. Clearly, the song is about a young girl, a teenager, a woman, who's interested in a guy who is not interested in her, and she's begging this guy. Right? If you need me, I'm going to be around. So first it's a little creepy. It sounds like, there's some stalking going on. But, honey, I'm still free. Look at the second line. Honey, I'm still free. So she reminds the guy, I'm available. Excuse me. Their most famous song, their popular song, the #1 hit that launched them into international sensationalhood, Waterloo. The song is about a guy, or I say a girl surrendering to a guy's advances. And ABBA equates this relationship to Waterloo. Waterloo is a famous battle in which Europe ganged up to stop Napoleon. So she equates herself to Napoleon. Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo, and that's her. I was defeated, you won the war. That's the line. Waterloo finally facing my Waterloo. Waterloo 1815, 200,000 troops involved, 50,000 people killed. So, they're using a battle in which 50,000 people died to talk about their relationship. That was in 1850. It was about 160 years later, we have the song, Waterloo. So, 2001, we have the terrorist attacks in the United States. World Trade Center collapses, the Twin Towers. So 160 years later, why not have a song about that? I was standing there when you just came out of nowhere and knocked me down. Disco was the prominent theme in American music in the 1970s. Highly sexualized, both in lyrics as well as beat. Disco was basically a reinvention of the big band era. First of all, they were big in the size. Casey and the Sunshine Band over here, Earth, Wind, and Fire over here. They basically took the sound of the big band, the swing, and had an incredible driving bass and driving percussion. Disco is basically big band with a lot of funk. Another aspect in 70s cultures, Saturday Night Live. Now, there had been a lot of comedy shows that come and went. Like I said, Saturday Night Live has been with us since 1975. Well, in the first season, episode 7, Richard Pryor was the host of Saturday Night Live. Richard Pryor, man, you never know what he was going to say. I mean, he blew a lot of profanity. And so there were censors. NBC censors they had a 3-second delay. So when Richard Pryor, anybody on the show, said something, the censors had 3 seconds to cut the audio feed if they heard something that the FCC said they couldn't say. Now, there were only 7 words that the FCC said you cannot say on television. Just 7. George Carlin made an entire career out of making fun of those 7 words. Google George Carlin, 7 words that you can't say on TV. Absolutely hilarious. So the censors are looking for these 7 words. Now, the sketch was called the Racist Word Association Interview. It stars Chevy Chase as the hiring manager and Richard Pryor as the applicant. He's trying to get a janitorial position. The sketch was written by Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney, you may know as the head writer for the Dave Chappelle Show. So these racist words that you're going to hear are not against the FCC. Let's see if this works.
Probably pretty ready for the job. We got one more kind of psychological test we always do here. It's just a word association. I'll throw you out a few words. Anything that comes to your mind, just throw it back at me, okay? It's kind of an arbitrary thing. Like if I said dog, you'd say tree. Tree. Dog. Tree. Fast. Slow. Rain. Snow. White. Black. Bean. Pod. Negro. White.
Look at Richard Pryor's face.
Car baby. What'd you say? Tar baby. Full face. Colored. Redneck. Jungle bunny. Pack of wood. Birdhead. Cracker. Spear chucker. White trash. Jungle bunny. Hunker. Spade. Hunker. Nigger. Dead hunker. I think you're qualified for this job. How about a starting salary of $5,000? Your mama. $7,500 a year. Your grandma. $15,000, Mr. Wilson. You'll be the highest paid janitor in America. Just don't hurt me, please. Okay. Okay. You want me to start now? Oh, no. It's all right. I'll clean all this up. But take a couple of weeks off. You look tired.
There will be an agreement, no policy, just agreement among the big 3, ABC, NBC, and CBS, that they would not allow racist words to be used. At least, well, I say yes, racist words to be used, with a few exceptions. So you would not hear stuff like Paul Mooney's Racist Word Association interview, even to this day. Now we got Hank Aaron. Wait, is that right? Yeah, Hank Aaron. Man, talk about an exciting summer. At least for me, being a little kid, watching Hank Aaron, homer after homer after homer. The problem was for Hank Aaron, he was, as you know, African American, and the record holder was a guy named Babe Ruth, a big old white guy. So as Hank Aaron got closer and closer, especially the last, let's say, 60 days before he broke the record, he was getting more and more threats. I mean, just vile stuff, just this horrific racist rants about how we're going to kill you and we're going to kill your parents, to the extent in which Major League Baseball hired 4 security guards, armed security guards, 2 who would stand outside of his hotel room and 2 who would be inside his hotel room. This is what we saw.
Once again, a standing ovation for Henry Harris. Though the confrontation professional and pitches games. One ball and no strikes. Aaron waiting. The outfield deep and straight away. Fastball is a high drive into deep left center field. Buckner goes back to the fence. It is gone.
That's his mom and dad running out.
What a marvelous moment for baseball. What a marvelous moment for Atlanta and the state of Georgia. What a marvelous moment for the country and the world. A black man is getting a standing ovation in the Deep South for breaking a record of an all-time baseball idol. And it is a great moment for all of us, and particularly for Henry Aaron, who was met at home plate not only by every member of the Braves, but by his father and mother. He threw his arms around his father, and as he left the home plate area, his mother came running across the grass, threw her arms around his neck, kissed him for all she was worth. As Aaron circled the bases, the Dodgers on the infield shook his hand, and that was a memorable moment. Aaron is being mobbed by photographers. He is holding his right hand high in the air, and for the first time in a long time, that poker face of Aaron shows the tremendous strain and relief of what it must have been like to live with for the past several months. It is over. At 10 minutes after 9 in Atlanta, Georgia, Henry Aaron has eclipsed the mark set by Babe Ruth. You could not, I guess, get two more opposite men. The Babe, big and garrulous and oh so sociable, and oh so immense in all of his appetite. And then the quiet lad out of Mobile, Alabama, slender and stayed slender throughout his career. Ruth, as he put on the poundage and the punch, the Yankees put their ball players in pinstripe uniforms.
No steroids in Hank Aaron. 7:15 the right way. Well, that pretty much takes us to the end. Almost. Earth, Wind and Fire put out a song in 1978 called September. The song is important to me because I was a freshman in 1979. Song had been playing for quite a while. It was very popular in the United States. I was going to a private high school, and the band director was a young college graduate named Mr. Mark Cleckley, an African American, and most of the songs we played in the marching band in the fall of '79 were disco songs, including September, which I did not like at that time. You know, I liked other groups like Rush, and anyhow. So Earth, Wind and Fire, September. We play that song. We're marching to the stadium. We had a horrible football field. It was homecoming and got shellacked, but I remember it was a very cold, unusually cold day, even for Milwaukee in the early fall. And my parents took a photograph of the percussion section standing while we're playing this song, September, in the stands. And seated next to me at the very end was my girlfriend Cheryl, very first girlfriend. So this song, although I didn't like it at the time, later in life, I now associate with, my first girlfriend. So let's see if this is going to work. Or maybe a commercial.
Call Mom.
Call Mother.
Call Ice Mom.
Calling Ice Mom on cell. Call Mimi.
Notice the big band. I mean, look at this. A horn section, a brass section. Instead of a string section, we have electric guitars. Driving bass. Well, I get the idea. Well, that was pop culture in the 1970s. One of the most influential pop culture and humor magazines was National Lampoon, started by a bunch of guys who graduated from Yale. Subscriptions were failing in the early 70s. So that's why they put out this cover. If you don't buy this magazine, we'll kill this dog. As a kid, I thought it was absolutely hilarious, and certainly got me to want to buy this magazine. Of course, this is an early example of Photoshop. They don't actually hold a gun next to a dog, but look at that dog, the way he's looking. Oh man, funny stuff. Pop culture in the 1970s.